Hello and welcome back to YouTube, where I am the only channel, and this is the only video. But before I bought this website for $12, a can of Sprite, and a banana, YouTube used to be an incredibly popular platform. The thought that YouTube was once small enough to put all of their biggest creators in a room together was kind of insane. Of course, that's until this exact moment because I am all the creators and I am in a room. Okay, jokes aside, there are now over 35,000 YouTube channels with over 1 million subscribers. And there's a solid chance you can't even name 20 of them. But back in 2012, everyone knew who the top creators on the platform were, even if you never watched them. Smosh, Ryan Higa, Philip DeFranco, Slow-Mo Guys, Epic Mealtime, and the first gay man to ever exist. But before anybody could reach 10, 20, or even 100 million subscribers, someone had to be the first to reach 1 million subscribers. Someone had to pave the way for YouTube as we know it. Someone had to create amazing content that would skyrocket them to fame. The first person to hit the milestone of 1 million subscribers would be none other than Fred FiggleHorn.
So the crazy guy really does know where I live. What if he comes over here and steals all the food out of our fridge? I don't want anyone to steal our food.
Yeah, if that didn't prove that children's internet humor hasn't changed over the last 17 years, I don't know what will. We can make fun of Skibbity Toilet as much as we want, but we grew up with this. Fred was everywhere in the mid to late 2000s, and I mean, it makes sense. This was the first person to make a real name for themselves on YouTube and maybe even the internet, and that's nothing short of impressive. Now, personally, I never liked Fred that much. Even with my Zoomer brain in 2008, I always just kind of found his content kinda dull. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed it because I was 6 years old, but when Ryan Higa came across my page, I really never looked back. But Fred's success would take his creator, Lucas Cruikshank, to unimaginable heights. And by that, I mean 3 original movies, 2 consecutive star roles on a Nick TV show, a crossover with Annoying Orange, and a 2009 Teen Choice Award. I'm saying that like it's not impressive, but he probably still has some of those checks in his bank account today, which is more than I can say. Lucas is still on YouTube to this day, but not on the original Fred channel. If you take a look at the Fred YouTube channel, the first thing you'll probably notice is a surprising lack of, well, Fred. The most recent development for the channel is that he turned it into a community channel of sorts, but even that hasn't been active for 8 years. Probably because the content wasn't good and it didn't feature the guy who created the brand and ran the channel. His channel went through a lot of stages, notably a full partnership with a creator named Jennifer Veal. I think for a short while there, the channel was named Fred and Jennifer. Probably the most notable thing that happened on his channel was a series of less than perfect animated shorts that released on his channel. They were released between the second and third Fred movie, probably to generate hype. The series was made by the creators of Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys. I have no clue how they got that to happen. In this time, Fred's channel popped off a few times, but it became pretty clear that around the 5-year mark, this wasn't going to be a sustainable thing for his channel. I'm assuming that's part of the reason that he quit YouTube and went to making reactionary and commentary content. His content isn't bad, but I think the word cookie cutter would be accurate. No shade to Lucas, the YouTube algorithm is a bitch. 3 million subscribers and some of his videos barely push 100,000 views. That's probably not entirely his fault. But enough about the shitty YouTube recommendation system. We're here to talk about Fred's first time on the big screen, assuming your at-home TV was about 50 inches or bigger. Fred the Movie was released on Nickelodeon on September 18th, 2010, which is a pretty weird time to release a Nick movie about Fred, right? Because you would have just missed the kids' summer break. This movie had an estimated budget of about $4 million. That might seem high, but that was pretty much the standard amount of money that they throw at movies like this. The movie was initially planned to go straight to theaters, but it takes a lot more legal and production legwork to get a movie on the silver screen. So instead, the primary producer of the film, Brian Robbins, stepped up and paid for a major portion of the film's production, and sent it straight to Nickelodeon after that. Shout out to Brian Robbins and Maurice Conbar for funding our childhoods. But where Maurice Conbar succeeded with Hoodwinked is where Brian Robbins failed with Fred, because Fred was ass. A 2 out of 10 on IMDb, and only 66% of Google users giving this movie a thumbs up. Well, it's not great, to say the least. But hey, at least you got 4 out of 5 stars on Target, not a single positive critical review on Rotten Tomatoes, and only 39% of viewer reviews were positive there too. And it's not exactly hard to see why. The common theme around these scores is that Fred himself was grating, annoying, unlikable, and simply not funny. This is hilarious to me because one of the movie's creators said that web comedy would be a threat to the future of television, but lucky for him that wasn't and still isn't the case. Okay, so if this movie got worse reviews than 2017's The Emoji Movie, then why are there 2 sequels, a web series, and a TV series that can be purchased on Amazon for $1.99 per episode? Because Nickelodeon made a ton of money, that's why. No they'd take a page out of Michael Bay's book. Who the hell cares if the movie does badly if it makes more than a Chick-fil-A on a Saturday night? And once again, I'd like to reiterate the fact that $4 million for a TV production in 2010 wasn't really that much, so they were probably making money hand over fist on this. None of these projects did well, but kids ate this up, so they made more and more until the well ran dry after the first season of Fred the Show. I guess producing 24 episodes of a TV show is a little more expensive than producing a single movie that has 3 sets. Who would have guessed? It is also important to know that Fred the movie does play directly into the lore that the Fred YouTube channel had spent several years setting up. They go through the effort of explaining all of it, but I think it's pretty weird because a big part of the YouTube channel was that Judy and Kevin either weren't real or weren't real people at the least. They were characters also played by Lucas Cruikshank. As far as I'm aware, they were never shown, and I think they're just disembodied voices. I may be mistakenly remember, but I think there's an episode where Judy is just Fred dressed up as Judy. I don't know. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's only one good movie I can think of where a guy talks to himself for 2 hours. However, it does seem like an odd choice to use established Fred lore if it goes directly against what the YouTube channels had set up in the first place. But I guess I'm not sure how many people would care for a new and original Fred lore, so kind of the lesser of two evils situation. Now, one last thing before we get into this movie. Other than a DVD, I have no clue how you're supposed to watch this movie legally. In any place I could find footage for this movie has a pretty low quality. That's just unfortunately how it is. If this video gets copyrighted, I'm going to lose my mind because finding footage from this movie is harder than finding the original version of that TikTok that everyone in the comments is talking about except for you. I don't know what you're talking about, just tag me in it or something. But seriously, this video getting copyrighted would be insane because it's not like Nickelodeon makes it easy to watch this movie. Now, I have a few theories as to why this movie isn't available anymore. Firstly, the movie is bad, and Nick wants to hide the fact that this movie exists. That theory isn't exactly plausible because companies like money, and it would be a waste of money. Having the Fred movie up on Paramount Plus wouldn't hurt anything. My second and much more likely theory is a bit odd, and if I explain it without you guys having seen the movie, you're gonna wonder what the hell I'm talking about. So instead, we're gonna go ahead and watch the movie and figure out why Figgle can't be horned. Our movie opens up with Fred excitedly exclaiming that he's about to have a 5-day weekend. Or at least that's my guess as to what he's saying. You try making this shit out.
Oh my gosh, did they decide this weekend to make the weekends the week and the week with the weekend?
Fred's whole gimmick doesn't exactly work for long-form content, does it? Speaking of school, Fred supposedly attends middle school, but he's 15 years old. And all of these kids look like they're closer to graduating high school than middle school. None of these actors are under the age of 16, so what the were they thinking setting this movie in a middle school? Did they think that Nick's viewers wouldn't watch a movie about Fred if he was 2 years older than them? If they're engaging in this type of content, I am 100% certain in saying they lack the critical thinking skills to give a shit. The first thing that this movie establishes is that Fred is infatuated with Judy, so much so that he stalks her and her mother on her way back to home 5 days a week, even though he lives directly next door to her. So he's going out of his way to be a creep. Fred even states that his bedroom was constructed to have a perfect view of Judy's house. Alright guys, this might be a controversial take, don't cancel me on this one, but maybe don't stalk people. That's f***ed up. There are a lot of ways you could describe the relationship between Judy and Fred. Less than healthy, one-sided, parasocial, up. Judy either doesn't know or doesn't care that Fred exists, but Fred thinks that he and Judy are dating. He must really want her to figgle his horn. Listen guys, that joke was going somewhere in the script, I had to get it over with. The next scene introduces Kevin for some reason and then cuts away to Fred rambling for like 3 minutes straight. There are some really unfunny cutaway gags in here. These gags are genuinely so bad you'd think they were written by the writers of Family Guy. Now here's my Fred opinion that most people probably won't agree with me on. Fred's voice f***ing sucks. I mean, yeah, no shit, that's the point. Multiple people in the movie will reference that.
Maybe because of your voice?
but you can quite literally hear the digital cracking from how filtered it is. They either needed some higher quality audio equipment or to try a slightly different voice, because this isn't it. We're only 6 minutes into this movie, and to me, his voice has already become super grating. The pacing of this movie is also toilet tier so far. Once again, I understand that they're trying to maintain the Fred brand here, but there is a gag here where his head falls off in the middle of his sentence, and then it just cuts right back to the same high-pitched, fast-talking Fred. I get the comedic value in it. Actually, no, I don't. The breakneck pacing of this movie makes it so even if you had time to laugh at one joke, which you probably didn't anyway, the next joke already finished. Not even your average TikTok user has an attention span short enough for this to be funny. For no reason at all, there is a cutaway gag here where Fred starts singing Fire Burning by Sean Kingston. What is the reason? On the bright side, I now remember that this song exists, and my Spotify account just gained one more liked song. Anyway, Fred burns his mouth on some nachos, we get jump scared by Fred's nipples, and the writers finally remembered that there's a movie they're supposed to be writing, so I think we're finally getting into the paper-thin plot of the movie. It has been 7 minutes, and nothing has happened. It's explained in a cutaway gag that Kevin, who is Fred's bully, has been getting closer to Judy. And by that, I mean they were singing together for class. But because Fred is a narcissist, he assumes that this means Judy and Kevin are together. Alright, because there are more cutaway gags in an episode of Interdimensional Cable, instead of actually mentioning what the f is going on in these cutaway gags, I'm just gonna start numbering them and then saying what happens in them. And if possible, I'll do it in one sentence or less. I'm not sure what number we're on now, and to be brutally honest with you guys, I have no desire to rewatch the first 8.5 minutes of this movie to find out. So let's just say this is number 5, although it's probably much higher than that. Cutaway gag 5 is Fred getting Kevin arrested for singing with Judy. During our next scene, we're introduced to Bertha, played by Jeanette McCurdy. Wait, so you're telling me that it wasn't Gwen from Total Drama Island, Shigo from Kim Possible, or even Jade from Victorious that started my goth girl addiction, but Bertha from the f***ing Fred movie? That's some Freudian shit. Bertha tells Fred that playing in his iconic kiddie pool is a bitch-made thing to do. This makes Fred run off, where he talks to his dad, played by John Cena. After physically abusing Fred to a concerning degree, he gives Fred some poignant advice. And because he's literally John Cena and he's not a total dick,
just remember, it's probably gonna get cold outside. Bring a sweater, okay?
Okay, Dad. Thanks.
Also, this entire thing is a cutaway gag, and his dad isn't even real, so that's number 6. Fred plans to get Judy to harmonize with him, which will cause her to entirely forget about Kevin. Cutaway gag number 7, Fred harmonizing with Judy. Also, I'm pretty sure who gets to sing with Judy is a giant innuendo, but maybe I just have a dirty mind. So Fred tries to go see Judy and is pulled aside by Kevin, who says that Judy wouldn't want to hang out with Fred because Kevin just finished laying mad pipe. The term objectification gets thrown around a lot these days, but this is one of the worst cases of female objectification I've seen in a long time. Only beaten out by Transformers, because at least they don't turn Judy into eye candy. The way they talk about her in this movie is actually pretty shameful. Fred and Kevin constantly and consistently treat Judy like she's a thing to be obtained and gatekept from the other, and honestly, it gets really annoying. Kevin tells Fred that he's been singing with Judy, and Fred finding out that Judy is synchronizing symphonies with Kevin on a regular basis makes him cry and run away. Holy shit, we're 14 minutes into this movie and Fred has only talked to 2 people, and one of them was imaginary. I am unironically starting to get a headache from Fred's voice. Thankfully, Fred's nonsense is quickly stopped by Fred's mother trying to enter the door. Fred's mom is a bit of a dick, but she's also based as f***.
Mom, I thought someone was gonna attack me.
Maybe because of your voice?
So after Fred's mom goes upstairs to take a nap, he's back to square one on figuring out how to get Judy to sing with him. That is, until John Cena shows up once again to attempt to kill him and then give him advice. It's like that one comic of Thanos randomly appearing to f with that one kid for no reason. I mean, except for the fact he's not actively ruining his life. But I mean, it'd be pretty nice if John Cena came to my house, hit me with a vase, solved all my problems, and then just left. I think that would cure my depression, honestly. John Cena tells Fred that he needs to jump the fence separating Fred and Judy's houses. So in the next scene, we get to watch a mentally unstable man catapult himself into a wall for a minute straight. It's as depressing as it is hilarious.
Ow!
But after going over doesn't work, he attempts to go under. During this entire sequence, Fred has been screaming Judy's name out loud. Wouldn't she hear this? Or anybody in a 500-foot radius for that matter?
I'm coming for you, Judy, just hold on!
Fred would probably be arrested during the process of this. After making some solid progress, Fred finds himself underground in front of a power line. After cutting this power line, Kevin's treadmill stops and he breaks his arm. And Fred gets a burst of energy from all the electricity entering his body. Make sure you try this at home, kids, because I can guarantee you those are the only two things that would happen if you cut a power line. With this newfound burst of energy, Fred finds his way into Judy's backyard.
I'm here! Oh my damn, I dug all the way to China!
Well, that joke certainly aged well. I think it'd be pretty funny if it turns out that those two children weren't even Chinese. After his first two attempts at finding Judy fail, his plan is to use an invisibility cloak to sneak past Kevin. As you can probably imagine, it's not like the suit works anyway. Okay, what the f***? So knowing that Fred can turn invisible, is he racist or did he actually dig to China in that last scene? He's racist, and much like A Life Where I'm Happy, it was all in his head. No, I do not. So Fred puts on his real invisibility cloak, and because he's not the one who's played by John Cena, we can still see him. Also, that does mean the entirety of the last thing was cutaway gag number 8. Fred realizes that his invisibility cloak doesn't work, so instead he disguises himself using his mother's extensive wardrobe and her insane amount of wigs. But in his panic to not be discovered by Kevin, he realizes that Judy's family has moved out. This is the moment where I realized that this movie isn't on streaming platforms for a very specific reason. We're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna play this clip, and you'll see if you can figure out what that reason is.
Oh my damn it, Asian people kidnapped Judy! I gotta call the police, and the cops, and the FBI, the CIA, and the army, and the SWAT team.
Yup. So the inciting incident of this movie, which happens 23 minutes in by the way, is Fred's girlfriend being kidnapped by Asian people. That is my second theory. Fred the movie can't be watched anywhere because it didn't age well and is pretty offensive. As I mentioned in the intro of this video, Lucas does have a YouTube channel and he did rewatch the Fred movie, but he suspiciously leaves out both parts of the movie where they make any references to Fred's casual racism. Now obviously I don't think Lucas Cruikshank is a racist or anything, he seems like a genuinely cool dude, but I do think it's weird that he didn't mention it at all. Like, dude, this is the reason you had to download the movie illegally for your own review of the movie you made. The movie is problematic, and to be fair, this is kind of just what TV was 13 years ago. No one is going to come after you for this. It's better to acknowledge it and move on than to not talk about it at all.
Girlfriend Judy has been kidnapped by Asian people. Asian people have stole my girlfriend.
Oh, holy f***. Fred actually calls the police on the Asian family. Okay, Lucas, I take back what I said. Bury this movie and never look back. The police hang up on Fred, which is kind of fucking wild, but to be fair, this dude is having an unintelligible manic episode right now. I mean, Fred's character is kind of just one giant manic episode. That's only half a joke. The psych major in me is diagnosing Fred with mania. This is where Fred's mother explains to Fred that Judy's family has moved away, causing Fred to go into an intense fit of rage. Yeah, this dude is fucking unhinged. This guy was not made for long-form content. Fred is so fucking unlikable. All he has done in this movie is stalk a girl and yell at the screen. I don't have enough Tylenol to watch another hour of this. That night, we're taking to cutaway gag number 9. Fred's father explains that Judy has been kidnapped by her parents and not the next door neighbors. Good, leave that poor family alone. After playing a transmission for Fred, ignore that. After playing another transmission for Fred, we learn that Judy has been abruptly kidnapped. Thank you for wasting my time to say the exact same thing the last scene just said. Fred's mom then fires a machine gun into a populated neighborhood and his dream ends. Fred thinks that his dream means that Judy is trying to communicate with him through his dreams. So with a quick Google search, he finds her new address online. The fact that he was able to find a random girl's address on 2010's internet is as impressive as it is concerning. Cutaway gag number 10, Judy is frolicking through a meadow because Fred is fantasizing about her once again. Fred wants to go save Judy, but he'll have to go through the woods to get there. Although he's scared of the woods because of what happens in the mysterious cutaway gag number 11. While playing catch with this kid named Evan, Fred accidentally threw a ball into the woods. Evan went to go retrieve the ball, and that was the last time anyone ever saw him. Well, that's dark as Fred decides to call the cops to ask him for a bus ride. After they hang up on him for the second time, he finds the bus that he needs and begins to pack for his venture to Judy's house. Cutaway gag number 12. Fred is dramatically sprayed with ketchup because he doesn't like ketchup. This cutaway gag has no setup and lasted for 30 seconds. Fred then steals $25 from his mom's purse and makes his way to see Judy. Fred doesn't get very far before Kevin finds him and attempts to follow him. Kevin tries to annoy Fred into telling him where he's going because this movie was written by 5-year-olds.
I never said anything. I'm ignoring you, Kevin.
Then why do you keep talking to me, Figglehorn?
But when Fred hops on the bus, Kevin doesn't follow. Fred is then made immediately uncomfortable when he gets on the bus and sees two burly men, a guy eating nachos, and his biggest fear of all, an Asian person. Fred then meets this guy who tells Fred that he's on the number 6 bus when he should in fact be on the number 7 bus. The guy who tells him this is Durf. Durf is the antithesis of Fred, having a low-pitched voice and is generally uninterested and avoidant. Durf is the depression to Fred's mania. Put them together and you've got bipolar disorder and a Nickelodeon movie. This scene lasts for 3 minutes and nothing happens during any of it. This movie so clearly has no plot and it's actually a little impressive. When Fred gets off the bus, he makes his way to a swimming pool where he finds Bertha, who buries him in the sand. I would probably let her do this to me if we're being real, but I'm not sure why Fred lets her do this considering he has somewhere important he needs to be. When beachgoers arrive, we have cutaway gag number 13. In this cutaway gag, Judy is drowning and is saved by Kevin. By the way, every time that Kevin and Judy are together, they sing a licensed song, so that's probably where the $4 million budget went for this movie. So Fred breaks free of the sand and says so long to Bertha. Bertha then tells Fred that Judy wouldn't want to be seen with anybody so dirty, so he gets naked and attempts to clean his clothes at a laundromat. But because that's illegal, he's pretty quickly kicked out, and instead he redresses himself and goes into a car wash and washes himself that way. Can't say I haven't thought about doing this as a kid, but I'm also smart enough to know that it would literally kill you. Between this and cutting power lines, Fred isn't exactly a good influence for kids, is he? Cutaway gag number 14. Fred sings an absolutely butchered version of Ignition by R. Kelly with Trudy. This version is genuinely so far removed from the original, I don't even think it counts as parody. Fred gets distracted by a pet store run by a sassy black man and his husband. That's not a joke, by the way. These two are incredibly queer-coded. I mean, just look how Oscar is dressed. Speaking of which, this guy was working on The Office in 2010. Why the f is he in the Fred movie? Fred sees the Pomeranians and believes that they're actually squirrels. After finding out that Pomeranians are not only not squirrels, but they're also $800.
$795? That's how much my mom makes a year. That is ridiculous.
He attempts to steal one, which ends with an altercation in which Oscar pepper sprays his husband on accident. Well, this movie may be racist, but at least it's not homophobic. Unless it's homophobic to have your only gay couple pepper spray each other. But there aren't many people who cross paths with Fred and make it out unscathed. Okay, so Fred has now gone to the beach, the car wash, and a pet store. There better be a huge Chekhov's gun moment coming soon, or else this is all pretty useless information. Update, just finished the movie, there's no Chekhov's gun moment, and all of that stuff amounted to nothing. Fred then comes across a Hispanic man, and assumes that he's a spaceman because he speaks Spanish.
Get away from me, spaceman. I will not let you ruin my brain.
Okay, so we can all agree that that was a joke about him being an alien, right? Because he's so scared of the Hispanic man, Fred then runs through several random sets and a roller coaster until the next scene when he ends up at a dam. This is an excuse for them to say damn as many times as they can without this movie getting rated PG-13.
Damn indeedy. Damn beauty. Damn.
It's clear that this movie was written for theaters because of how many adult jokes they try to slip in there. This officer then tells Fred that the quickest way back to his bus route is by going through the woods that Fred is so afraid of. This cop specifically references the disappearance of little Evan and then tells Fred to go into the woods. Well, that's not very security officer coded of you. Fred then enters the woods and then quickly exits the woods after hearing something growl. But he mans up and starts his poorly filmed venture to Judy's house. Fred then comes across a talking deer. Oh my god. Yes, but I don't want to get demonetized. The talking deer calms Fred down, but Fred runs into little Evan, who has been living in the forest for like 8 years. Fred then runs straight out of the forest and finds his bus stop. Wow, so the last 3 minutes of Fred talking to a deer and meeting little Evan didn't matter? That's so cool! Kevin then happens to be driving by the bus stop and sees Fred waiting there and makes his mom drive around the block twice so that he can make fun of him. It's also lightly implied in the scene that Kevin's dad beats his wife.
No, I am drawing the line.
I'm gonna tell Dad.
Don't tell him.
Fred then finds Durf again, who does nothing but wake up Fred when the bus arrives. Jesus Christ, this movie has no plot. Did we really just watch a part of the movie where nothing happens but Fred falls asleep and then wakes up? On the bus, Fred brushes his teeth because he's f***ing insane, and a lady comes up and gives him a Pomeranian she found on the street. Alright, I guess. The bus then drops him off directly in front of Judy's house, where Judy is British, in love with Fred, and calls the dog a squirrel just like Fred does. Okay, either Fred is dreaming again and I'm about to be super pissed that this movie is wasting my time, or this movie just gaslit the f*** out of me into thinking Fred was crazy, and if it did, I would find it genuinely hilarious. He then recounts his tales to Judy and they begin singing and he wakes up. Yup, you gotta be f***ing kidding me. That was cutaway gag number 15, everyone. Pack it up, guys. No good movie for you today. So Fred finally arrives at Judy's house, for real this time, and walks straight into a party that he wasn't invited to. Oh wait, she's actually British? I just assumed that was something Fred made up in his head because he's f***ing insane. Wow, Judy has just lost a lot of attractiveness to me. I'm kidding, Pixie Lot, please email me. Fred gets laughed at by everyone at the party, and Judy tells Fred that it'd be better if he just left. And because this movie is made by Nickelodeon and is for kids, he throws up on Judy before making his great escape. Why do so many Nick movies find it necessary to have vomit? Even the newest TMNT movie had a whole scene where April just puked on screen for 12 seconds. Believe it or not, Judy doesn't actually hate Fred, she only seemed to want him to leave because everyone else did. She was even looking for him after he left. Fred then takes the walk of shame back home. He's picked up by the bus driver because Fred was nice to him earlier and overpaid him as well. Fred is so distraught that he can't even say anything to the camera for once. Nah, I'm just kidding, of course he can! He begins to complain about how all of his friends are fake and how Judy's southern accent isn't real. Fred mentions Judy's southern accent earlier in the movie, so when he said that and she was British in his fantasies, I just thought he was stupid. I mean, he is stupid, just not the way I thought he was stupid. Fred's mom then confronts him about his yelling and she shows him the remix edit of him vomiting on Trudy. After a whole minute and 30 seconds of him complaining about the video, he decides his best course of action is to throw a party and invite no one. He then heads to Kevin's house and gives him a disinvitation. He tells him that he can't come to the party and to suck his huge dick. Fred then goes from place to place disinviting everyone. Wow. The year 2010. Where people sat in their trees and stood in front of their houses 24/7. Look at all of these people, living in the moment, not a cell phone in sight. Fred eventually arrives at Bertha's house, who tells Fred that what happened to him was very cruel and she didn't find it funny. This turns into them finally bonding and Fred invites Bertha over to his party. The scene is surprisingly sweet, to be honest, but I think that's just because Fred isn't yelling for once and God creatively peaked when he made the beauty that is Jeanette McCurdy. This scene consists of them just doing a ton of random party stuff. This is a pretty lengthy montage. It's around 3 minutes long, but we only have 10 minutes left in the movie, and Fred's relationship with Judy hasn't changed at all. The next morning, Fred edits the video that they were filming last night, but as he gets ready to post it, he has an existential crisis and thinks that everyone will believe he faked the video, because he did fake the video, but he ends up accidentally uploading it when he hits his head on the counter. The video is just him and Bertha showing that they faked a party. The fact that they just showed us 3 minutes of them filming a fake party just to show us 3 more minutes of said fake party is insane. I refuse to show any of it, but there's also a lot of fake vomit in this scene. The next day at school, everyone is talking about Fred's party, and he's also become the most popular person in the school overnight. All the girls even want to go out with Fred, and all the boys want to go out with Bertha. You can't convince me that people are just now starting to believe that Bertha is hot. It's Jeanette McCurdy. I guess this is when everyone thought that being emo or goth was weird. Now we've reached a point in this society where 90% of homophobic men want a bisexual goth girl, and 90% of bisexual goth girls are dating homophobic men. Fred's mom is finally proud of her son because who wouldn't be proud of their kid if they threw a f***ing rager? Fred's mom also reveals that the guy who was shitting on the toilet in the Google Street View of Judy's house is probably Fred's biological father.
How do you know him?
We had a date once. That was about, I don't know, 15 years ago?
I'm 15.
John Cena shows up again, says he's taking a nap, and then leaves. Because the writers forgot that this movie had a plot, Judy comes over, says that she wants to apologize to Fred and be friends with him. She then offers to come inside and sing with him. And because it's the end of the movie, Durf is here for some reason. Yippee, I guess. That movie was f***ing shit. I never realized exactly how much nostalgia goggles can f*** up your vision. This movie was, and I don't say this lightly, ass. I'm hoping even with the few audio clips I used, it becomes incredibly obvious that Fred's voice becomes physically harmful to listen to after about 10 minutes of prolonged exposure. I understand that his voice comes with making a movie about him, but maybe they just shouldn't have made a movie about him. How the f did this guy have a TV show? I wouldn't be able to make it to the commercial break without slipping a disc. The first act of this movie took way too long to get to and to get through. Because they wanted to keep the Fred brand intact, they included more cutaway gags than a Seth MacFarlane project and more camera cuts than a Taken movie. We spend maybe 12 minutes of this movie setting up exposition because Fred wants to waste my time making Sean Kingston roll in his grave. Well, he would be if he heard this. This movie doesn't really have a plot at all. It has a synopsis because things do happen, but the only thing Fred wants to do for the entire movie up until 15 minutes before the end is get to Judy's house. A task that is as easy as taking a bus ride, but is stretched out for no reason. The sequence where Fred goes to the beach, then the laundry, then the car wash goes for a total of 6.5 minutes and influences nothing on the plot. Most of the dialogue in this movie is just Fred one-sidedly rambling about nothing, either to another character or, more likely than not, the camera. And the crazy thing is, I don't even think that this is terrible conceptually. I just don't think it should have been a movie. I can legitimately see how some people would like the Fred show. Personally, his voice somehow makes my eyes hurt, but for some people, I can see 22-minute chunks of Fred being fine. But there's a talking f***ing deer in this movie. What the hell happened? I think at that point, the writers of the movie should be reevaluating the life choices they made. This movie is actually written by a guy named David A. Goodman, who is a talented writer who worked on Futurama and even Family Guy. So I'm wondering if the more adult jokes like the casual racism and the use of the word damn were written by him. And it would also explain why I said this movie feels like a giant Family Guy episode. I didn't know this when I wrote that in the script. It was my honest initial reaction. But the point I'm trying to make here is that I'm wondering if he maybe doesn't have enough experience with children's shows or movies, or maybe even if Lucas had a little too much input. Either way, the movie's just not funny. Before we get into the final score, we need to talk about one last thing. The list of crimes Fred FiggleHorn committed in this movie. I've counted theft, destruction of property, dialing 911 without an emergency, attempted burglary, sabotaging a municipal power grid, stalking, trespassing on multiple counts, and taking the Lord's name in vain. I'm sure I missed some, so I'm gonna issue a little challenge for you guys. It's not really that deep, but I think it'd be fun. If anyone is able to give me like a full list of like actual crimes that he committed, I'll pin it as the top comment. I think it'd just be fun. Also, we need Fred to atone for his sins. All in all, I'm going to give Fred the movie a 2 out of 10 on the critical score. From its bad acting, terrible pacing, and unintelligible plot, this movie doesn't offer a lot to be rated any higher than this. For the fun score, I'm a little conflicted. Like, no, it's not good, but I think I have to go with my heart and give this movie an unfortunate 4 out of 10. Most of the value of this movie comes from nostalgia and John Cena, but nostalgia fades away just as quickly as it comes at you. I wouldn't say it's not worth a watch, but even if you wanted to watch it, good luck finding a copy. Thank you guys for watching this week's video. Before you go, I have one quick thing I want to say. I made a Letterboxd account. Some of you have been asking me to review theatrical releases, but with the lack of time, money, and available footage I have to edit a video, it'd be quicker and easier to just to publish full-length reviews there. I'll try to make them as entertaining to read as these videos are to watch. But for now, you guys have a great place where you can fully disagree on my opinion of the FNAF movie. You know, ironically, now thinking about it, my thoughts on this movie are pretty much the exact same as my thoughts on the FNAF movie. A pretty bad movie that's only good if you're a fan of the pre-existing media. I'm not gonna fit a mini FNAF review in this video, but guys, a lot of the plot of that movie doesn't matter. Okay, back to the outro. Make sure you guys follow my socials where I'll post about video updates and other generally silly antics I have going on. And as always, thank you to my patrons whose names have been scrolling for a little while now. Me and the gang have to skedaddle. We have 2 half marathons to run. Maybe, but this way we get a break in between, so I think it works out better that way. Well, then we get a 5-minute break. Oh. Yeah, no, I see your point now.